Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance will stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend Richard Rains, Fairmont Christian Church, Mechanicsville, Virginia. The senators will remain standing and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America by Senate Page Alexandra Josephine Walker.
Good morning. Would you bow our heads and pray with me, please? Dear Father in heaven, we praise you and thank you for another day of life, another day to serve all of our sisters and brothers in this Commonwealth. Here at this noon hour and throughout the rest of this day, we invite your presence into this historic Capitol building and into this honorable Senate chamber. May your holy presence in the midst of these legislators provide them all that they need to govern our Virginia in a way that is pleasing in your sight. Grant them your wisdom as they tackle challenging issues. Grant them your patience as they work across the aisle. Grant them your resolve as they seek to do what is right. Grant them your compassion as they value the lives of all Virginians. In these difficult days we are experiencing, dear Lord, we humbly ask that you bring reconciliation, bring healing, and bring a peace to this place that passes understanding. We always ask that you put your hand of protection on those who protect us, our first responders, those in law enforcement, and those defending our nation here at home and abroad. I lift up my prayer to you this day in the name of my Lord Jesus. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk will call the roll. All those present will please record their vote aye. Clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. President. Senate Journal for Friday, February 8th, 2019.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 3.
Ayes 35.
And Rule 36-1.
Ayes 35, noes 3, Rule 36-1. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will report any communication from the House of Delegates. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good afternoon, Senator.
I respectfully move that we waive the reading of any communications from the House of Delegates, and it appears that you got cheered over the weekend.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the communication from the House of Delegates and its reading be waived? All in favor of waiving the reading will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The reading of the communication from the House of Delegates is waived. Clerk will report any communication from the governor.
We do not have any, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now comes a time in the morning hour where we have the honor and privilege of recognizing our distinguished guests with us here in the Senate gallery. I will give my daily reminder that the way this will proceed is that a senator will stand up, recognize an individual or group. I will then offer the warm welcome of the Senate, and at the very end, we'll all clap together. So I'd like to begin by calling on the Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Rise for the purposes of an introduction.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you. Today we have with us in the gallery the Reverend Rick Rains. Rick is with Fairmont Christian Church in Mechanicsville, and he's accompanied by his wife, Betsy Rains, in the Senate gallery. Mr. President, they have both, Rick and Betsy, have been strong advocates in the community for many families and many individuals, and they are a great asset to not only their faith but to Hanover County. And it's my pleasure that Rick was here today to get us off on the right foot. And Mr. President, could you ask that the Senate offer them the warm welcome of the body, and thanks for being here and getting us going in the right direction today.
I thank the Senator. Would Reverend Richard Rains and Betsy Rains please rise in the gallery if you are able? Reverend and Betsy, thank you so much for joining us here today. We are honored to have you. That was a beautiful, wonderful prayer. It set exactly the right tone, and so we are grateful to you for your moral leadership here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and know that Betsy is tremendously proud of and supportive of you, and so thank you for all of that both of you do to make the Commonwealth of Virginia a better place to live. And so we echo the generous and eloquent words of Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal, and I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to Reverend Richard and Betsy Rains. Senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purposes of an introduction, please.
Thank the Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joining us today are students from John Tyler Community College who are joined by their college's president, Dr. Ted Raspuler. Now, I happen to have one of the 4 Chase kids at John Tyler, so I'm especially appreciative of Dr. Raspuler's leadership. John Tyler Community College is the 3rd largest of Virginia's community colleges, serving more than 14,300 students last year. In addition, Tyler's Workforce Division, Community College Workforce Alliance, assisted more than 7,000 learners. CCWA is a partnership between Tyler and Reynolds Community College, is one of the Commonwealth's largest producers of Fast Forward credentials, which are funded by the Workforce Credential Grant. And I really appreciate those of you who came to my office today, and I was able to snap a quick picture and say some hi's to folks. And Mr. President, I just ask that you give them the warm welcome of the Senate today. Thank you.
Thank the Senator. Would our friends from John Tyler Community College please rise in the gallery if you are able? Doctor, your students, thank you all so much for joining us here today. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to see you in the Senate and the Capitol, and we are deeply proud of the work that you're doing at John Tyler to make education more accessible, to help our workforce get the skills that they need to keep growing Virginia's economy and give people economic mobility to provide for their families. So we are deeply, deeply appreciative of the work you do every single day to make this Commonwealth a better place and a place of opportunity for all. So I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders from John Tyler Community College. Senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an introduction.
Thanks, Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joining us in the gallery today are a group of young, handsome, gifted young men from Hampton Roads, 200-plus men. And they are from across Hampton Roads, representing several high schools. And they're joined today with several chaperones. Please give them the warm welcome at the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our leaders from Hampton Roads, 200-plus men, please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for joining us here today. What an awesome and powerful sight to see young men who are bright and respectful, who have hope and a future, and who are respectful of all that this Commonwealth is going to offer to you in your lives. And we want to make sure that you have opportunity, that you get to live a life of promise, and that you move forward and make your families proud and your communities proud. We are all deeply proud of every single one of you. And I hope that you leave here today inspired to achieve your dreams, because you will, and no one will take them away from you. So I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders from Hampton Roads, 200-plus men. Senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for in order to make an introduction for my seatmate.
Thank the Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate and those in the gallery. I was looking to my left and noticed my my seatmate, the senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico, was writing a whole bunch of stuff. And I said, what do you got there? And he said, I got to get these introductions together. And then he put it on my desk. So I guess I have to make the introductions. Mr. President, we have in the gallery today with his beautiful wife, Paula, some nieces and nephews of the senator from Grayson. And so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 names and a lot of biographies. So it's going to take about 20 minutes to get through this, but give me a shot. Mr. President, up in the gallery, we have Adrienne Sweet. She plans to go to Virginia Tech and become a veterinarian. She's in the 10th grade, and she's homeschooled. Philip Sweet is a nature lover, and all creation wants to study nature. He's a 7th grade homeschooler. Eli Sweet likes to fish, hunt, and wants to be a marine biologist, and he's a 6th grade homeschooler. Silas Sweet wants to be a politician like his uncle, and he's in the 6th grade, and he's also homeschooled. And Palin Sweet is an athlete, loves basketball, and wants to be a musician, is in the 5th grade. This just demonstrates that we have a lot of Carricos out there in the world, and we need to be more careful about that. But they look so adorable and cute, and certainly if you could give them the warm welcome of the Senate as well as Senator Carrico's wife, Paula, I'd most gratefully appreciate it, sir.
I thank the senator. Would the Carrico family in the gallery please rise if you're able? Thank you all so much for being here today. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to have members of the Senate family with us here for session. Paula, it's always wonderful to see your face, and you brighten up this place. And I know for the senator from Grayson, he is deeply appreciative of all of your support. And I believe you can never have too many Carricos, so feel free to have as many here as you'd like. But we are grateful to you. You have a wonderful husband and uncle for the nieces and nephews. We're very proud of you. I know that both Paula and the senator are as well. Go out and do great things, and we look forward to seeing you here very often. I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to the Carrico family. Do any other senators wish to be recognized for purposes of an introduction? Is there any other business to come in the Senate in the morning hour? Senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Mr. President, I failed to mention that accompanying the 200-plus men is the Vice Mayor of Hampton. That's Vice Mayor Jimmy Gray.
I thank the senator. Would Jimmy Gray rise in the gallery, if you're able? Vice Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, it's so wonderful to see you as always. Thank you for your leadership in this group in Hampton, throughout Hampton Roads, and really throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. You're a fine example for so many of us to follow, and so we are grateful to you. And I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to Vice Mayor Jimmy Gray. Is there any other business to come in the morning hour? Seeing none, the clerk will call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Monday, February 11th, 2019. Uncontested calendar, House bills on third reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully move that all the House bills on the third reading on the uncontested calendar, which would include all House bills on pages 1 through 28, including House Bill 1637 through House Bill 2798, be placed on their final passage in the block after the adoption of any amendments. Any senator who desires to remove a House bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of that bill.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall House bills on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 1 through 28, House Bill 1637 through House Bill 2798, be placed upon their final passage in a block after the adoption of any amendments thereto, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. The clerk will read the number of the bills.
House Bill 1637, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1648, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1656.
Mr. President.
Senator from Alexandria, Senator Abbott.
Could House Bill 1656 be moved to the regular calendar?
No.
No, it can be
taken out of the block.
Without objection, House Bill 1656 will be removed from the block.
House Bill 1662, reported from the Committee on Transportation with a substitute.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1664, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1673, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1677, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1678, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1709, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1711, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1720, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I'd ask that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1725, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1728, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1729, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1732, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1733, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1737, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1738, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1743, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1768, reported from the Committee on Transportation.
Mr.
House
President,
Senator from Alexandria, Senator Evan.
could House Bill 1768 be removed from the block?
Without objection, House Bill 1768 is removed from the block.
House Bill 1771, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1777, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1783, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1786, reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendments.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move that the amendment be agreed to.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
House Bill 1787, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1802, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1803, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1820, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1832, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1833, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1835, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1849, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1867, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1870, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1878, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1922, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1927, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1930, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1938, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1944, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the substitute be agreed to.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1945, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1952, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1970, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1971, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1983, reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendment.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee amendment.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted.
House Bill 1985, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2018, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2035, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2039, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2045, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2057, reported for the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2078, reported for the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2114, reported for the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2158, reported for the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2183, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2215, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2217, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2220, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2276, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2242, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2278, reported for the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2313, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2318, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2343, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is adopted.
House Bill 2400, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2439, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the court's substitute be agreed to.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 2445, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2449, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2453, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2464, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2484, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2487, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2529, reported from the Committee on Finance with a substitute.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I would ask if that go by temporarily.
Without objection, House Bill 2529 will go by temporarily.
Out of the block.
Out of the block.
House Bill 2548, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2551, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2557, reported for the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 2558, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 2563, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2648, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2659, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2674, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2693, reported for the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2699, reported for the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2720, reported for the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2722, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2750, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with the substitute.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 2769, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2798, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to. Question is, shall the House bills pass in a block? That is all bills except for House Bill 1656, 1768, and 2529. All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bills in the block pass.
Returning to page 2, House Bill 1656.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. 1656 is a school safety bill. It is a bill that affords to students in private schools the same protections that are available to students in public schools. All it provides is that they can employ a security officer for the school and authorize their security officer, like security officers in public schools, to carry a firearm. It also requires that they are subject to the same criteria as is applicable to security officers in a public school. With that, Mr. President, it would be my hope that the members of the body will vote to provide that same level of protection to students, irrespective of where they or their families choose to educate them.
Thank you, Senator. For what purpose is a junior senator from Richmond City? Senator McClellan rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask if the gentleman rise for a question.
Will Senator rise for a question?
I do.
Senator Rise, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask if the security guards covered in the private schools under House Bill 1656 would be required to undergo the exact same training as the security guards that are in public schools.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, they would be subject to the same criteria for carrying a firearm in the performance of their duties as school security officers employed by public schools, which, is my understanding, requires the same level of training, same level of qualifications as is applicable in a public school setting.
Further question, Mr.
Further
President.
question? Senator Yield?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd ask if they would have the same powers and duties in the private school as the security officers would have in a public school.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I don't know the answer to that question, except to the extent that that these are security officers that are analogous to the security officers employed in public schools. I do know that that there are standards that are imposed that include additional duties in public schools that may not be applicable. For example, the sheriff's office puts sheriff's deputies in schools and others who perform additional and other duties, including some instructional duties that may not be applicable in connection with the hiring of these school security officers in a public school or in a private school setting. It's a matter of contract and the duties that the school chooses to impose.
Final question, Mr.
Further
President.
question? Senator Yield?
I do.
And so would these school security officers be subject to all of the same oversight from the Department of Criminal Justice Services that any public school security officers would be?
Mr. President,
floor.
My understanding is that that is correct, and that DCJS is responsible for providing the training for these officers and setting the standards.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. While I take the gentleman at his word, part of the concern that I have is that the bill uses the definition of school resource officers in Title IX, I see in one and potentially two other sections of the code, but it is still not clear to me, the gentleman's answers notwithstanding, that all of the powers, duties, training, and oversight that would apply to school security officers in our public schools would also apply in our private schools. And with that doubt, until I can be assured that the answer is yes, I'm going to have to vote no and hope that we can get an answer to that question as this bill moves through the process.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 1656? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 1656 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 6.
Ayes 34, noes 6. House Bill 1656 passes.
On page 7, House Bill 1768.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the bill pass. Speak to the bill.
Thank the senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, House Bill 1768 simply removes the word taxi cab from the title when these vehicles are being resold for the titles for sale on the vehicles, and move that the bill pass.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Alexandria? Senator Eben rise.
To ask the gentleman from Grayson if he'd yield for a question.
I'll yield.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
I would ask the gentleman, as a consumer, does that mean when I buy a car from someone that I wouldn't know if it was used with the kind of driving and wear and tear that a taxi cab might have?
Senator's floor.
I would answer that currently just having that on the title doesn't affect the sales of these. This is just taking the certificate of title of the motor vehicle prior to the sale and transferring it to just such a vehicle as it being sold. The mileage and all that would still be on the title as it.
I thank the gentleman.
That's a good answer.
Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 1768? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 1768 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. House Bill 1768 passes.
House Bill 2529 on page 24.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I would ask that that bill go by for the time being, temporarily.
Go by, okay. Without objection, House Bill 2529 will go by temporarily.
Regular calendar, House Bills on third reading, House Bill 1652, a bill relating to the school calendar opening day of the school year, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to. Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, speaking to the motion to pass the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, many of you will recognize that for many, many years we have not had these school calendar bills that have made it this far. You'll remember that early in the session we had the bill from the senator from Chesterfield that basically represented a compromise. You'll recall that bill basically said that school divisions that currently have the waiver can keep the waiver. However, those school divisions that do not could open 2 weeks early as long as the Friday before Labor Day through Labor Day they remain closed. Mr. President, this is a duplicate bill of the one that we sent out earlier. I hope we would pass the bill.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 1652? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 1652 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 30, noes 10.
Ayes 30, noes 10. House Bill 1652 passes.
House Bill 1818, a bill relating to parking ordinances enforcement, reported from the Committee on Transportation with a substitute.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Move the committee substitute.
Question is, shall the committee substitute be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is adopted. Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Mr. President and members of the body, this is identical to Senate Bill 1044, Senator Black's bill, which was reported out of the Senate 27-12. This authorizes any county or town with a population of at least 40,000 to provide by ordinance that law enforcement officers, other uniformed employees of the locality under contract with locality may issue a summons or parking ticket for violations of that locality's ordinances. The population bracket limits that there's not many towns in Virginia that has 40,000 people living in them. So this kind of narrows it down to one locality in Virginia. Move the bill passed.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 1818? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 1818 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. House Bill 1818 passes.
House Bill 1955, a bill relating to appellate damages, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to the bill,
the floor.
Mr. President, this is a lawyer bill only lawyers could love and only lawyers could disagree about. This is a bill that deals with the award of costs after an appeal is decided. The current law says that only if you prevail in an appeal can you recover costs. There are plenty of occasions upon which you prevail in part, but lose in part, but keep your entire award, entire verdict, entire judgment. And this makes it clear that if you prevail in part, you can recover some or all of the costs that are awardable. This is a recommendation of the Boyd Graves Conference, which is a organization of plaintiffs' lawyers and defense lawyers committed to improving the administration of civil justice.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 1955? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 1955 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. House Bill 1955 passes.
House Bill 2059, a bill relating to non-payment of child support, amount of arrearage paid, time period to pay arrearage, repayment schedule, suspension of driver's license. Reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with amendments.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to the bill,
Does the Senator want to move the committee amendments first?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I move the committee amendments be agreed to.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to. Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill be agreed to. Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, this is one more bill dealing with the ability of people to get their driver's licenses back. This is a bill that deals with this question in the context of child support enforcement. What we have spent a lot of time over the past couple of years talking about is that taking away somebody's driver's license is not a really effective way of collecting damages. It's not very effective. There are better ways out there. Right now, if you don't pay your child support, and the Department of Child Support Enforcement Services asks the Department of Motor Vehicles to take your driver's license away if you meet certain thresholds for non-payment, you'll lose your driver's license. That remains the case. But what this bill does is it slightly lowers the threshold for getting your driver's license back. It requires an effort and demonstration of goodwill and intention on the part of the non-paying parent to actually catch up and agree to a payment plan and to make an initial installment in the process. It simply lowers the amount of the initial installment required, but keeps that sanction available to DCSE. So with that, I would move the passage of the bill.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 2059? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 2059 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 3.
Ayes 37, noes 3. House Bill 2059 passes.
House Bill 2170, a bill relating to false caller identification information penalty. Reported for the Committee for Courts of Justice.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to the bill,
Senator has the floor.
You know, every once in a while I get a call on my phone that says somebody's calling from Harrisonburg. It doesn't show up with a name, but since it's from Harrisonburg, it must be somebody I know. And I answer the call only to find that it is a timeshare sales outfit or some such organization from Louisiana or Arizona or California or some point unknown. It is driving people crazy. It is an abuse. It is an attempt in most instances to defraud, intimidate, or harass. And what this bill does is it makes it a Class 3 misdemeanor to make such a call with the intent to defraud, intimidate, or harass in a manner that causes the phone to display false caller identification information. So with that, I would ask that you assist people like me who are frustrated with these calls, your neighbors and your constituents as well. Only people who make harassing telephone calls could possibly oppose this good bill. I would be astonished if there is a single member in here who somehow feels personally threatened by legislation like this. And if they get up to argue against it, I will be fascinated to hear the basis for that opposition.
For what purpose does Senator from King George, Senator Stewart, rise?
To rebut that eloquent argument by the esteemed chairman of Courts of Justice Committee, Mr. President, I rise to speak to the measure.
Senator has the floor.
And so what the gentleman from Rockingham says is basically correct. The problem here is if you think through this logically, there's absolutely no way to prosecute a bill like this because you don't know who's on the other end of the phone. And so what happens is they have technology that can determine which phone the call came from. And that's all they can determine. You can't determine who the person is making the call. And so if senior senator from Virginia Beach wants to pull a prank on me, he can use my phone to do this. And then the individual on the other side is going to issue that warrant against me. And that's the part that concerns me about this bill. And it probably should concern everybody about it, because you're going to get a lot of allegations that you've then, well, maybe or maybe not, but you'll have allegations where you've actually got to go to court just to say it wasn't me, and they can't prove the case. And so, I mean, I don't know why we would enact something into law that, number one, you don't know where it's coming from, and you absolutely can't prosecute it. So with that, Mr. President, I'm going to vote no, but I'm not asking anybody else to.
Thank you, Senator. For what purpose, Senator from James City County, Senator Norman Rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was wondering if the senator from Harrisonburg would yield for a question.
Senator yield.
I yield.
You have the floor.
Mr. President, I apologize. I didn't bring my iPad with me, but under House Bill 2170, if a principal contractually retains a telephone marketing company and the telephone marketing company makes these unauthorized calls, will this bill make the principal liable?
Mr. President, only under limited circumstances would it make the principal liable. On line 16 of the bill, it says any person who, with the intent to defraud, intimidate, or harass, causes a call to be made. Okay. I would respectfully submit that the predicate necessary to hold that principal liable would not apply if the agent somehow violates the law.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. That answers my question. I appreciate the gentleman.
Thank you, Senator. For what purpose is Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson rise?
Speak to the bill.
Senator, has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at, in all seriousness, if you look at this bill and you look at subpart B, it says any person who with the intent to defraud, intimidate, or harass causes a telephone to ring or engages in conduct. Causes a telephone to ring in and of itself, full stop, is a violation of this statute under 18.2. It now, causing a telephone to ring is now a criminal violation if this passes. So just imagine that, causing a telephone to ring with the intention to intimidate or harass. Well, I've caused a few telephones to ring in my time with the intent perhaps arguably to harass. I've seen phones ring in people's desk in this chamber. I've seen people set off unique ringtones at various times in awkward situations. All this is now criminalized if this bill passes, because causing a telephone to ring, full stop, now becomes a predicate act for a criminal offense under 18.2. I would say that is somewhat unprecedented under our law, so I hope we think twice about making this part of our state code. Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is Senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben rise?
Ask if the gentleman from Harrisonburg would yield for a brief question.
Senator yield.
Only if it's a brief question.
You have the floor.
I would ask the gentleman if he recalls if this is the same bill that I co-sponsored of the senior senator from Loudoun that passed here pretty easily.
Senator has the floor.
This is not the same as the senior senator from Loudoun's bill. That addressed the issue in a somewhat different manner through the State Corporation Commission. This creates a Class 3 misdemeanor.
Thank you.
Thank the senator. Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, First of all, with respect to the objections of the senator from Fairfax City, I would point out that in Section B, it is not simply to cause a telephone to ring. It includes the requirement that it also display false caller information of the intend to display false caller information. Second, I would respectfully submit with respect to the argument made by my friend from the Northern Neck that this probably represents a compromise. I have heard those who indicate that they believe that that life in prison is a suitable sanction for harassment and intimidation of this nature, but a Class 3 misdemeanor seems like a fair compromise.
Mr. President.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Surville.
Gentleman yield for a question.
Senator Yield.
I yield.
You have the floor.
So I'm looking on line 16, and it seems to me to say any person who with the intent to defraud, intimidate, or harass causes a telephone to ring or engages in conduct that has the display of a false number. So it would seem to me that just causing to ring with the intent to harass is enough. Does the gentleman agree with that?
Senator's floor.
Mr. President, I salute my colleague on his grammarian skills as a grammarian. It would be enough if it is somebody who, with the intent to defraud, intimidate, harass.
One final question.
Further question? Senator Yield.
I yield.
You have the floor.
Would the gentleman have an opinion as to whether or not some of the people who don't want me to be their senator anymore might find one of my robocalls to be harassment?
Mr. President, that mitigates, and that certainly would mitigate in favor of a Class 1 misdemeanor.
Speaking to Bill very briefly.
The senator has the floor.
I mean, in looking at this further, that's just the kind of thing that worries me, that we might be opening the door to political gamesmanship or things like that. I mean, when they have that "or" in there, I mean, a lot of people get phone calls they think is harassment, and that's the reason the word harassment doesn't appear in the code very often, is because it's such a broad concept and people think they're being harassed all the time. Our Court of Appeals has had to really narrow down what constitutes criminal harassment as opposed to broader civil harassment in lots of cases over time. And I worry about sort of First Amendment issues on this and void for vagueness issues as well. So just having listened to the debate and looked at it further, it worries me whether or not this bill is enforceable.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Sasslaw, rise?
Would Senator Surville rise for a question?
Senator Yield for a question.
Yield.
Senator's the floor.
Is this likely to be about as effective as, say, the do not call list?
Senator's the floor.
Do not call list. I would agree with the gentleman that trying to figure out who these people are, and if they're out of state, nobody's getting extradited on a misdemeanor, if that's what you're getting to. I don't think there's any question about that. But what worries me is the number of charges that are going to be brought by people thinking this provides a remedy when it doesn't, and the prosecutor's going to be having to negotiate a lot of civil disputes in a criminal case.
That's not the question I asked.
Further question?
Mr. President, I'd ask the gentleman, if this got passed into law, which would slow down more of these unwanted calls, this or that great do not call list?
Senator's the floor.
What I'd say is, gentlemen, given that I've already received 2 unsolicited calls today, the point taken.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 2170? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 2170 pass? All in favor of the motion record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 22, noes 17, Rule 36-1.
Ayes 22, no 17, Rule 36-1. House Bill 2170 passes.
House Bill 2228, a bill relating to composition of the boards of nursing and psychology, health regulatory boards, staggered terms. Reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I'd like the bill to go by for the day. We're still trying to make sure we understand what the terms are now, and it is my fault that I did not have that prepared today. So by for the day, please, sir.
Without objection, House Bill 2228 will go by for the day.
House Bill 2253, a bill relating to non-resident concealed handgun permits, time of issuance. Reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, this bill deals with the time frame within which the state police must act upon a non-resident concealed handgun permit. It does not change the criteria for granting such a permit. Right now, those permits are just taking the time frame within which they are granted varies widely. And what this bill does is it simply imposes upon the state police a 90-day time limit for acting upon out-of-state concealed carry permits. And that's all it does.
Senator, do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 2253? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 2253 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 23, noes 16.
Ayes 23, no 16. House Bill 2253 passes.
Uncontested calendar House bills on second reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I would now respectfully move that all the House bills on the second reading on both the uncontested and regular calendar, including all House bills on pages 31 through 41, including House Bill 1621 through House Bill 2796, that the rules of the Senate be suspended and that the second constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with, sir.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended in the second reading of the titles of House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 31 through 41, House Bill 1621 through House Bill 2796 be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
I would now respectfully ask that all the bills be passed by for the day, sir.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on third reading be passed by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will go by for the day.
Returning to page 24, House Bill 2529.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have being prepared to substitute. We had some technical issues with it, and it should be arriving momentarily, so we need to pass that by to later in the calendar today.
We're at the end of the calendar, but...
You might need to take a recess then, Mr. President.
Okay, I know a senator wants to return to the morning hour. We could perhaps do that.
Okay.
Okay. When we start, Senator from Prince William, Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules be suspended and Senate Resolution number 112 be taken up for immediate consideration.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and Senate Resolution 112 be taken up for immediate consideration? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The rules are suspended to take up the resolution for immediate consideration. The clerk will read the title of the resolution.
Senate Resolution number 112, celebrating the life of John D. Jenkins.
Senator from Prince William, Senator McPike.
Mr. President, I move that the resolution be agreed to.
Thank the Senator. All those in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolution will please rise. The resolution is agreed to.
Mr. President.
Senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Having voted on the prevailing side by which we passed House Bill 2170, I move that that bill be reconsidered.
Which page are you on, Senator?
On page 30.
Question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 2170 passed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to.
Mr. President.
Senator from Fairfax City. Senator,
could that bill go by for the day?
Without objection, Bill 2170 will go by for the day.
Mr. President.
Senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Having voted on the prevailing side by which we passed House Bill 2253, I move that that bill be reconsidered.
Thank you, Senator. Good. Question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 2253 passed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass, having previously been explained.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2253 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. House Bill 2253 passes. Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe we're in a...
Just a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for preempting the senior senator from Virginia Beach. We have one matter remaining on the calendar which has been passed by temporarily, and that's the tax reformation bill, which is House Bill 2529. The House of Delegates is standing in recess until approximately 1:30 as they discuss some matters. It would be my suggestion, rather than having the Senate recess, that we go to the end of the calendar, and if there are any announcements or points of personal privilege, that we could more appropriately use the time during. So I would respectfully request that, Mr. President.
Thank the Senator. Senator from Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with the senior senator, the senator from James City County's moving us, I guess, into the session after the session here, I'd ask for a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as we enter the second week of Black History Month, I thought it appropriate to tell a personal experience of mine that I think is very important. As most of you all know, I attended the Naval Academy, which you may not know is I was not recruited for any athletic association or any athletic sport, but during the plebe summer I did do all right in wrestling, which is a sport I did in high school, enough to make the team. And so I was excited. I was going, and if you haven't been in collegiate sports, I will tell you the seasons start at the beginning of the academic year and they never end, as long as you're in the sport and as long as you're attending. I was excited, but I hope most of you have seen the movie Rudy. If you haven't seen the movie Rudy, it was about a well-motivated young lad that was too small to play Notre Dame football, but went to Notre Dame and managed to be on the practice squad and basically got pounded every day at practice for 3 seasons before they finally let him play on the team. Well, as I got to the first practice or the second practice, they put me together with a second lieutenant, a gentleman who had already graduated from the Naval Academy but was held over there. Never asked why Lieutenant Keyser was held over. They put me in a room with Lieutenant Keyser, and I felt very much like the Rudy from the movie. For 2 hours a day, I would consistently get my rear end handed to me over and over and over again. So I finally was a little bit curious about Lieutenant Keyser, Lloyd Keyser. Lieutenant Keyser was a multiple All-American in the 1972 Olympics. He was the backup to Dan Gable. If you know anything about wrestling, Dan Gable is the all-time premier wrestler that ever existed. Mr. Keyser, I was there. I weighed a little more than him, and I was there to keep him in shape and allow him to continue to work me over. Mr. Keyser went on to win the World Games. He was a world champion. He won the Pan American Games on multiple occasions, and in 1976, he was the first African American to win an Olympic medal, an Olympic silver, in the Montreal Games in wrestling. He was a very, very accomplished midshipman. Not only was he American athlete, a tremendous athlete, an All-American 3 years, but he also was an outstanding leader within the Naval Academy. He was no slouch. He majored in mechanical engineering, which is one of the more difficult majors you can have at the Naval Academy. He was also a company commander, which is a recognition of leadership skills. Upon graduation, amongst winning the Olympics and winning the World Games and winning the Pan American Games, he was assigned to Camp Lejeune as an infantry platoon commander, subsequently assigned to Quantico, where he was a platoon commander at what they called the basic school, officer training. And when he left the military service in 1977, he continued in the Marine Reserves as a combat engineer company commander. He spent 30 years with IBM in the Baltimore area, an area he never left. That's the area he grew up, just in the suburbs of Baltimore. One of his highest honors was to name a community center, the Lloyd Keyser Community Center. It was his elementary school that had been abandoned. And today he's retired from IBM, but he continues to give back to the community. He continues to be a motivational speaker. He continues to go into neighborhoods. While at IBM, he was placed on a special program with IBM to teach computers to those that are disadvantaged. And he was the author of an entire program for word processing and computer data entry that served as a model for IBM and certainly changed a lot of lives within the community. So that's my personal experience, the opportunity to get beat up 2 hours a day, all of September, all of October, and all of November, and part of December. But in the process, he made me a better wrestler, and quite frankly, Mr. President, he made me a better man. And so I just want to thank Captain Keyser for all he did for me, and just let the body know that as part of Black History Month, that even now, you don't have to dig too far back in history to find true heroes and people that I've respected all my life. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the Senator. What purpose, Senator from Fauquier? Senator Vogelreis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hate to follow the Captain Keyser legend story now. I rise because I would like to ask that we please return to the morning hour.
Without objection, we'll return to the morning hour.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to direct your attention in the gallery to a very special person that has been sitting here patiently waiting. They didn't make it into the gallery for the first morning hour, and she's here with some perfectly, and I mean perfectly behaved children because they've been right in my eye shot. When you sit next to somebody, I want to say, Mr. President, you learn a lot about them, and you get to know them really, really well. And the hours and hours of conversation that you have, and the hours and hours of storytelling that you share. And I can tell you that there is one person that my seatmate talks about consistently and shares some of the most touching and heartwarming and loving stories, and that is of his daughter. And his daughter is here today. I've waited the whole session. I was hoping she was going to make it, and she didn't let him down. She's here today with 5 of her children. Her name is Michelle Staton. She's a homeschool mom with 5 kids. They're here, Michael, Adam, Brian, and Camille. Michelle left her job in the manager's office at Dulles Airport some time ago to manage her dad's first campaign, and she has run every single one of his campaigns since then. It's her fault. The Peanut Gallery, I'm sorry. As one of the very few female campaign consultants in Virginia, she's run more than 20 campaigns. Whether she's collecting donations for the homeless or volunteering in their church or working on campaigns, she is very, very active in her community and very active in that family and very much loved by her dad. And so with that, I would ask that you please extend to Michelle and the kids the very warm welcome of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the Senator. Would Michelle Staton, your 5 wonderful children, and any guests with you, please rise in the gallery if you're able. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us here today. I know it's a particular pleasure for your dad to see you here and to see his grandchildren as well. You have a beautiful family, and we appreciate all that you've done to make our legislative process work and our politics work. And so thank you for your commitment to your family, but also to the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we know that Senator Black is blushing with pride right now, getting to see you here once more in the Senate. And we echo the very eloquent and generous words of Senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel, who also is your very close friend. And so you are family here in the Senate of Virginia. You, of course, are welcome back here anytime. And I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to Michelle Staton and her wonderful children. What purpose does Senator from Western Fairfax, Senator Marsden, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. In keeping with the request of the Senator from Petersburg, who eloquently last Friday asked us to share experiences of awareness around issues of race and injustice, I offer something I presented on this floor 4 years ago. Another colleague here on our side of the aisle has asked me to reprise it, and it perhaps has more context and relevance today than it did 4 years ago. But this is Black History Month. It's a time when we celebrate the accomplishments and the achievements of individuals who did so under very difficult and sometimes almost impossible circumstances. But for me, it's also important because it still brings back a number of unresolved childhood memories from the days of segregation. I grew up in a 1890s era elementary school in Fairfax County that had been converted to a home in 1932. It was also a small farm. There was an African-American neighborhood just down and across the street from me, and whose ancestors never attended that school. They didn't attend either the brand new school that had opened in 1954 that I attended. My school was in Annandale, just a mile away. Their school was in Falls Church, a considerably longer drive. As a child, it never occurred to me why they didn't go to my new school. It had just been built. It never occurred to me to ask why they lived on dirt roads, not paved ones, or why they had no indoor plumbing, and why they had to draw their water from a spring. And when the McWilliams family, who lived in that community, lost their 2-year-old child in a fire, it never occurred to me to think that they lived in a fire trap, and the tragedy was inevitable. In my world, nobody ever discussed these things. After graduating from college in 1970, I became a juvenile probation officer. And in conducting investigations of children and families, I had the opportunity on several occasions to do social histories with African-American families. And I was made aware of what life was like in Fairfax County back in the days of segregation. Students having to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to school, to their high school in another county, not just a few miles away, but many miles away on gravel roads that took almost 2 hours for them to get there. Shopping was difficult. Services were difficult. Doctors were difficult to get to. There were huge barriers and limited options. I also learned that this small community, which is now a row of medical offices that many in Fairfax County and certainly some in this chamber have gone to visit their doctors, has replaced that community. And I learned that this land was given and deeded over to them by George Washington. My high school integrated in 1965, and it went very smoothly. As students, we never thought much about it. But this was 11 years after Brown versus Board of Education before we integrated. While this spoke to our innocence and lack of bias as students, it also spoke to our lack of awareness and sense of social justice as young people. Mr. President, in 10 to 15 years, there's going to be no one in this chamber who actively remembers living in the era of segregation. You know, myths may begin. Gee, it wasn't all that bad. It was. It was that bad. That's why Black History Month is so important, because it's a time to remember that there was a time that we should never forget. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. For what purpose is Senator from Northern Fairfax? Senator Howell rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also stand on a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Like everyone before me, I want to thank the senator from Petersburg for suggesting that we give our own personal experiences. I'd like to talk about my college roommate, Sarah Smith. When I was a sophomore in college in January, I was fortunate to be selected to be the roommate of an exchange student from the Delta in Mississippi, from Tougaloo College, a historically black college. You all know it, of course. She went there. So Sarah became my roommate. And it was kind of a funny situation because even though I was already sort of a civil rights worker even then, all the way through high school, I had never known a black person. I was in what was supposedly an integrated school. It certainly wasn't segregated, but there were no blacks in the school. Sarah was from a very segregated school, so she'd had no experience with whites either. And we became very fast friends. And I want to tell you a couple of stories about Sarah. After about 3 days of being together, Sarah was trying to decide what college courses she was going to take. Now, those of us at Oberlin, having a pretty superior view of ourselves, typically took about 3 solid courses and 2 gut courses. Those were the terms we used. I hope you all know what they meant. Sarah came in and she said, well, she was going to take chemistry and she was going to take advanced math and she was going to take constitutional law, English literature, and I can't remember what the 5th was, but it was a 5th solid. No gut courses. So I say, Sarah, we don't do that. You can't do that. Nobody takes 5 solid courses. But she insisted, and she did. So at the end of the semester, me with my 3 solids got a solid B average. Sarah, with her 5 solids, aced every single one of them. Any feeling of superiority was gone. Absolutely gone. I also want to tell you something that happened during our spring break. Sarah came to my house in Bethesda, and we spent the week doing Washington in every possible sense of the word. And one of the things we did was go to the U.S. Senate. And we were sitting up in the gallery, and they were discussing the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That just was coincidental. I don't think we'd planned it, but there we were. And Senator Rivers from Mississippi stands up and does a racist rant on the floor of the U.S. Senate. And in the middle of it, he says, you know, I think those Negroes, and he didn't pronounce it that way, should all go back to Africa. We'll put them on a boat and we'll send them back to Africa. Sarah immediately stands up in the gallery of the U.S. Senate and says, Africa? Back to Africa? I've never even been to Africa. We were rather quickly escorted out of the gallery. But Sarah went on to become a college professor in Pennsylvania. She's a recognized author, and we reconnected about 3 years ago. So I just wanted to tell you about Sarah.
Senator, for what purpose is a junior senator from Virginia Beach? Senator D. Steph rise.
Mr. President, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
After taking a little advice from the good senator and my former office mate from Petersburg, I decided I'd share a story about one of my friends. Some of you may have heard of his name, Colin Luther Powell. Born April 5th, 1937. He's an American statesman, a retired 4-star general in the United States Army. During his military career, General Powell also served as the National Security Advisor, Commander of the U.S. Army Forces Command, and Chairman of our Joint Chiefs of Staff, holding that position during the Persian War. That's where I met my friend, Colin Powell. I was on the Navy desk, a very young ensign. Not a very smart ensign, a very young ensign. I had the opportunity to brief him on North Korean operations. It was a very trying time. He put his arm around me and said, "Son, relax. It's not that bad." He was a very tall man. He was 6'2", 6'3", and had a smile that would warm and melt anyone. Well, from there, he moved on. He was the only Jamaican American to serve on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and was also appointed as our 65th United States Secretary of Defense, serving as under U.S. President George W. Bush from 2001 to 2005, the first African American to serve in that position. And Mr. President, the 66th United States Secretary of State, also an African American, was the first woman to serve appointed by President George W. Bush. That was Condoleezza Rice. And Mr. President, we'll save her story for another day. But General Powell is a recipient of numerous U.S. and former military awards and decorations. His civilian awards include the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the President's Citizens Medal, the Congressional Gold Medal, the Secretary of State Distinguished Service Medal, the Secretary of Energy Distinguished Service Medal. Several schools and other institutions have been named in his honor. He holds an honorary degree from universities and colleges across the country. General Powell is married to the former Alma Vivian Johnson of Birmingham, Alabama. He also, during the Vietnam War, was awarded a Bronze Star and multiple Purple Hearts. The Powell family today, son Michael, former ex-chairman of the FCC Commission, daughter Linda, Ann, daughter-in-law Jane, and grandsons Jeffrey and Brian. Today, Mr. President, Colin and his lovely bride live in McLean, Virginia. I wanted to share my story about a man who's big in stature, with a large heart and a big smile, who my first brief to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff told me, "Relax, it's not that bad." So that's my story. And again, I thank the General Senator from Petersburg for asking us to share our stories. Thank you.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose is Senator from Loudoun, Senator Black, rise?
On a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've already heard the gentlelady from Fauquier make an introduction. My daughter came here and brought a number of individuals who have been with me for many years. It suddenly occurred to me that all of my advisors have been women. I am having a little difficulty recalling any who were male, but in any event, they have been a magnificent group of people, and so I would like to make some introductions. We have them and their children. First, I'll mention Callie Chaplow. Callie Chaplow was my former aide. She worked for me for 5 years. I think many of you knew her. She went on to marry and has 4 children now, but she has remained very, very close to the family. Was just magnificent. Also was a classic Annie Oakley. First time she ever went shooting, she used a .357 Magnum. And when I came back to the office, she said, "Look at my target." And I sort of glanced at it and said, "That's great." Later that night, when the office was closed, I walked by and I looked and saw that she had shot the bullseye out. I mean, there was not one round that had not hit the bullseye the first time she ever fired a pistol. So pretty amazing. She's a very, very talented lady. The next one that I'll mention is Shell Wilson. She was a volunteer coordinator, tremendous at coordinating people across Loudoun and Prince William County, getting things done for us, making things happen. We have Araceli Day, who is a homeschool educator with her children, Bruno and Petra. And by the way, I believe all of our folks here are homeschool moms or former homeschool moms. We also have Renee Henderson. Renee was a former campaign manager. She worked for me 3 times, starting when she was a teenager and going on. She went to UVA, and then she came back and worked for me again. Her children are Jeffrey, Emma, Abby, and Abigail. And she just did tremendous work. A very, very dear friend, Gretchen Nogel, who has been with me time and again, and Liz Dickinson, who has hosted our events at her home many times. One thing, I'll just back up with Callie Chaplow, my former aide for 5 years. Her son, Douglas, is now one of our Senate pages. And so in any event, we have a great group here. I'm very proud of all of them and very grateful to them for what they have done for me over many years. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from Eastern Fairfax? Senator Surville rise.
Mr. President, I rise for a motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I'm going to move in just a second that we adjourn the honor and memory of someone. I just want to let everybody know we had a significant loss this weekend in Prince William County. John Harper, for those of you from Northern Virginia might know him, he was the first African-American elected to anything in Prince William County back in 1995. He grew up within a sharecropping family in North Carolina, served 23 years in the United States Army, decided to settle in Dale City in the Senator from Prince William's district. He later moved into the 36th Senate District, where I had the good fortune to knock his door. But John was an institution in Prince William County. Everybody knew him. In fact, they named an elementary school after him this last year. And, Mr. President, when we adjourn today, I would move that we adjourn in the honor and memory of John Harper of Prince William County.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be recognized? Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I respectfully ask we return to page 24 of the calendar for purposes of taking up Senate Bill 2529, sir.
Without objection.
Senate Bill 2529, reported from the Committee on Finance with a substitute, and there is a floor substitute.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, for the purposes of getting to the floor substitute, I would move that the committee substitute be agreed to, but ask that we vote no.
Thank the senator. With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
The noes have it. The committee substitute is rejected. Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that we waive the reading of the floor substitute.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the reading of the floor substitute be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor substitute is waived. Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the floor substitute be agreed to, and speaking that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, what you have before you is the new bill related to the return of the tax funds back to the taxpayers. Mr. President, if you are leafing through the document, there are many pertinent parts, almost all of which, Mr. President, are in the same bill that we have supported earlier. If you go to the enactment clause, there are a couple of changes that we're going to kind of walk our way through. Mr. President, you will notice in the meat of the bill that the bill continues to have the return back to the taxpayers of $110 and $220 for singles versus married couples. That is going to be returned later this year, and we will address in the budget tax's ability to do that. We also continue with the deconforming of guilty, which is some of the foreign income items, and then also the 1/5 of the interest deduction. Mr. President, you will also see in the body of the document, as we've had before, that the SALT provision is still in there, but at this point it begins in the second year and not the first year. That is the same way that we had it in the document before, and that will allow an opportunity to have the state and local tax deductions kick in. Mr. President, then you will see, per working with the senator from Southern Fairfax and others, we have the standard deduction, which is $4,500 and $9,000, which continues on this bill. Mr. President, you'll also look and see in the document that there is another provision that has come forward. I think working with some of the members on the Democrat side and Democrats in the House of Delegates, there was a provision related to what is often called the pleas amendment, and this is actually going back to a former. The Pease Amendment goes back to a former action in Congress in 1991. It basically indicates that if you are a super high-income earner, that you will be topped out on the amount of deductions that you can take. And before you are too concerned about those individuals, what you've already put into the budget, which is the SALT provision, is most of that. And so correctly, I think some recognize that if we're going to have the SALT provision, which is state and local taxes, for the most part it's property taxes, that you shouldn't be able to double dip. Whether you're a high-income earner or a low-income earner, you shouldn't be able to double dip. And so this corrects that portion. Mr. President, that is, if we can get that turned around quickly, it could be up to $50 million for this year. We believe that next year, because taxpayers won't react to their activity yet, it'll be $104 million. And then in the out years, where this bill continues to address tax policy in the out years, you would have $70 million working its way up to $80 million. Mr. President, as you'll recall, we were able during our budget negotiations to work with this bill and also make sure we funded priorities that were brought to us. And Senator from Southern Fairfax and others were able to help us make sure that we were still able to do our 5% teacher salaries, the guidance counselors, increase in the guidance counselors, the affordable housing, and also the water quality improvement was also enhanced in this process. Mr. President, I think we would all note that the way that this has been handled, at least on the Senate side, and I understand on the House side, where Senator Vivian Watts and others have been very helpful, has been a bipartisan approach, and we are quite grateful for those provisions. Mr. President, beyond those items, all the items in the bill are basically the same. It does ensure that going forward in the final part of the enactment clause, that anything that's left over from these funds will go into this special fund that will be for taxpayer relief. There's good news in talking to the administration. They indicated that that funding is actually very helpful. While it's not a stabilization fund, it, in regards to Wall Street, I think will be very helpful in regards to the same aspects that a stabilization fund is helpful to the Commonwealth. Mr. President, the bill also does include the emergency clause, which is the same as we had in committee earlier on. And if we're going to pass this bill, I think it's very important to have the emergency clause, because the net effect is if we do not include the emergency clause, there will be confusion across the Commonwealth. So basically, you'll start to file your taxes for Virginia, and if you don't, if you don't have the emergency clause, guidance will not be given from tax, and as a result of that lack of guidance, we will end up with taxpayers that either have to all file an amended return, or they'll get less back, or in many cases, the refund that we have in this bill, since there's self-actuating language, would actually go down because we did not get that money back quick enough. The amount of that, if we were to wait till July 1st, is something close to $200 million. So the amount that was able to go back to taxpayers would be decreased, and they would increase the confusion among Virginians. Mr. President, I think that hopefully lays out most of the provisions that are in the substitute, and I think that most of them continue on as we discussed in Senate Finance with the changes and the provisions that I've discussed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from James City County? Senator Norman rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the floor substitute.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
I want to compliment the gentleman from Bedford. I think he succinctly and accurately described where the bill is. It is substantially in the same format that was reported from this body on the Senate bill. But a couple of things. One very significant change that has taken place. Many of you are aware with Delegate Vivian Watts, who is really an extraordinary tactician and statistician when it comes to things. And one of the concerns that had been expressed by some of the members down the hall were the potential impact of the tax reform bill on the lower income people. And Delegate Watts has come up with a proposal which has been incorporated. We're talking about 6% of the taxpayers who file that have income $50,000 or less. So we have made an adjustment in this bill to provide greater relief to those at the lower income. The senator from Bedford mentioned it has an emergency clause. And the emergency clause obviously is very important, and it is more important than a usual situation because we are running up towards the end of the session. Just like the budget, which becomes effective upon the signature of the governor, not any other date, but on this date the governor signs the budget, an emergency clause also becomes effective upon the signature of the governor. The difference is that it takes an 80% vote of both bodies in order for emergency clause to be passed. So I say that in the sense that I am hopeful that every member in this body will be supportive of this substitute with the emergency clause and the other provisions that have been shared with you. The last thing that I would say, in an effort to expedite the enactment of this law, we are hopeful to get it to the governor within the 7-day period, which will expedite it. And the importance of that is, number one, once the Department of Taxation becomes aware that this legislation has passed both bodies, then they can begin to implement the auditing and the work that they need to do so that timely delivery of those $110 and $220 refund checks can be sent out. Also, we'll be able to very timely make a determination whether or not tax is going to need any additional personnel in order to process the tax returns. I am told that they can expedite about 250,000 of those at a time, but still we want to have adequate period of time to address that. So overall, I think this is an extraordinary piece of legislation. It's extraordinary because of the substantive provisions that have been placed in it, and I thank the senator from Bedford, and I thank my co-chairman, Senator Hanger, for all that time and effort that has gone into it. But what really makes it extraordinary is that we have literally come together on a bipartisan basis and have been able to draft a piece of legislation, amend it, and reach an accord on how we think we can best go forward in 2019 with this tax reform legislation. It's my hope that everyone will support it.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from Eastern Fairfax? Senator Surville rise.
Well, the gentleman from Bedford yield for a couple questions.
Senator Yield.
I yield.
You have the floor.
So, just so I'm clear, I believe the big provisions of this act, the changes to the standard deduction, maybe a couple other things are in part a reaction to the big federal changes, 5 of which I believe expire in 2026. There's a child tax credit, the deduction for pass-through entities, expanded child tax credit, double the itemized deduction, the standard deduction changes, and the lower individual income tax rates, which is what caused the problem in our budget. Is that right?
Senator's the floor.
Mr. President, I would agree with the gentleman.
The gentleman yield for further questions.
Question?
I yield.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
So, given that this is premised on those changes that expire in 2026, does anything in this bill expire in 2026 when all those federal deductions and rates and itemized deductions snap back?
Yeah, Mr. President, it is an important, good question. I should have covered it earlier. If the gentleman would look with me on line 570, he will find that that is the end of the return of the funds back to this fund, which also self-actuates the tax return. So what will end up happening is the SALT, the GILTI, the interest will go back, and also the standard deduction. Now, Mr. President, I would tell you that I hope I won't be here, but I hope someone as young as you will, and I hope you'll keep the standard deduction. I really believe that that standard deduction is a bit long overdue to be raised, but in this bill, all of those provisions end up going away at the end of that time.
Senator.
Okay, thank the gentleman.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose, Senator from Arlington? Senator Favola rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for a question.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess it's the Senator from Bedford.
Senator yield.
Mr. President, I yield.
Thank you.
Give the floor.
For those individuals who would be applying for the Earned Income Tax Credit, are there any specific benefits in this bill that don't currently exist, but perhaps the timing could expedite, or there could be a more generous payment?
Yeah. Mr. President, it is probably the one provision that is not in the measure. So the measure does have a couple of items working with the other side where the refunds that go out, and we hope that that'll go out in October for the 110 and the 220. We also made a change, you may remember, in Senate Finance that said, let's say you only sent in $90. We made the change there so the entire $90 would go back as well. So those items are in the provisions. But a true earned income tax credit, as you may know from the federal government, does not exist here.
Okay. A follow-up question.
Further question? Senator Yield?
Yes, sir.
I believe maybe it was the senator from James City County said 6% of our taxpayer applications, if you will, are in the 50,000 or less category. So is it a fair categorization that those who may not qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit but are in the 50,000 range would gain some advantage?
Yep. Mr. President, the gentlelady is exactly right on that. Let me give you a couple of things. One, the percentage that would go to those of the lower income is much greater because you get the refund back. If you pay in, here again, $90, it all goes back. But also remember that one of the reasons why we've got the standard deduction here is because if all you do is you pay in in this case, or you plan to pay in $9,000, you actually will be taken off the rolls altogether. It doesn't mean you don't have to file, but it does mean that your entire tax is eliminated. If you do by chance have an itemization, right? So you're a higher itemization. You don't get that standard deduction, so that is not going to be available to you. You will get the first refund check. And also, on top of that, if you are a very high income individual, then you're going to be phased out on your itemization above 313. So all of those are there. And I would be remiss, Mr. President, if I didn't indicate that that Aubrey Lane and the governor and others have been very helpful, and they were helping us lead us through the process that led us in no small part to some of these provisions being changed along the way.
I thank the gentleman. That was helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding HB 2529? Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Sasslaw.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, the Secretary of Finance, Aubrey Lane, told several of us this morning that this document makes the tax code in Virginia less regressive than it currently is. So I think it's a plus for the people who are currently, below $50,000, and there is a little more going back. We don't have the earned income tax credit in there, and that's true. But more people under 50,000 are scooped up and getting some money back. So I would ask support for this.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard? For what purpose is Senator from Southern Fairfax? Senator Barker rise.
Mr. President. I forgot I wasn't still on the basketball court. But, Mr. President, could we take a brief recess here at this time before voting on this?
Without objection, Senator, how long would the senator like for recess?
10 minutes. So.
Okay. All right. Senate will stand in recess until 2:05 p.m. Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I renew the motion that we pass the substitute, and speaking just briefly to that motion.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, we appreciate the work, and also, honestly, we appreciate the questions. The questions that we have had over the last half hour are important questions, and I hope that we've answered each one of these. Mr. President, as you will recall, sir, this bill attempts to return approximately $1 billion back to the taxpayers and does it in a way that I think our Secretary of Finance has indicated is a very responsible way. It also self-actuates in a way that if the current federal tax plan was to end, that we would be saved from going into negative territory. Mr. President, I would hope that it would be the pleasure of the body to pass the substitute.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard with regard to the floor substitute for HB 2529? For purpose, Senator from Petersburg, Senator Dance, rise.
Mr. President, I rise because there is a sense of unreadiness for some as far as the questions that we might need to have answered to feel much more comfortable about the actual voting. And I want to know if the patron is willing to take this by for one day to allow us to talk with some people that I'd like to talk to in the area of finance to make sure I have some questions answered before voting.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, let me answer the question by saying kind of why we're here today and why we moved it forward in finance in the way we did and why we put it forward is that the days right now only line up barely to get to an 8-day bill. And when I say an 8-day bill, it's not a 7-day bill because if there is any error whatsoever in this and the governor would like to technically fix anything, I think he and his secretary have looked over it very well and given us a lot of assistance in getting to it. But if we don't get to an 8-day bill, then we can't get back onto the floor and allow it to have the opportunity for us to accept the governor's amendment. So I don't think I've ever asked that something continue on, but if the gentlelady has any other question, I'd be glad to answer those questions. But I think if we put it past today, we could put the bill in some peril, Mr. President. So sorry about that.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from James City County, Senator Norman, rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. With all due respect, and I mean that very seriously, to the gentlelady from Petersburg, I think that the gentleman from Bedford articulated why we would really like to move this bill forward today. I would say we're not trying to hide or obfuscate or distort anything at all, and I appreciate that there very well may be some questions, and I was not privy to the conversations that took place in the Democratic caucus, nor do I need to be, but just a couple of observations. Over the past few weeks, there has been a fair number of discussions with the administration on the Earned Income Tax Credit, and the administration had backed away from their insistence on that, and that is one of the reasons that we've tried to embrace the suggestion from Delegate Watts, which would have provided a greater distribution on relief to the lower income individuals. And that was part of a larger discussion. It would not surprise me if some issues or some questions had been raised about appropriations to K-12, higher education, some of the other core services. And I would like to just remind the body that the approach from the Senate Finance Committee and many of us in this body was that we were trying to work our way through to first identify what the available resources were. And that was the importance of this tax bill and whether we were going to decouple, whether we were going to couple, how we were going to approach it. Excuse me. Because that was going to help us quantify the available resources to subsequently be appropriated. As of this point, we really have not gotten into serious discussions with our counterparts on the House of Delegates about where we are going to appropriate the available resources. And I would say, Mr. President, that those members of the Senate that have been here for a while know traditionally where we tend to focus. So I hope that you'll have some degree of comfort. There have not been any collateral or side agreements as to where we would appropriate the money on it, but those discussions are going to start. But we really do need to move this bill forward, and for that, I apologize that we are requesting to do that.
Mr. President.
Senator from Petersburg, Senator Dance.
I'd ask the patron if I could have a 2-minute break so I could talk with him directly.
Mr. President, I will give the gentle lady all the time she wants to become comfortable.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, the Senate will be at ease. Will come to order. Senators will please take their seats. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate the recess and the opportunity to address a couple of questions on House Bill 2529. I renew the motion from the senator from Bedford to pass the bill. I will say this, that a number of individuals in the Senate have been involved in the discussions and the development of this bill, and it has gone outside of what is conventionally maybe anticipated with those that would do it. And if anyone happens to feel that they have not had the participation level that they want, what I can assure you, Mr. President, is as we get into the appropriation of the resources that we've now identified, that we will try to make the process more open. And I'm not suggesting it was closed, but I realize that there are many issues that perception sometimes can become the reality. But I will say that on behalf of Senator Hanger and myself, that we will be approachable. We are happy to engage in discussions. If anybody has any funding priorities that are within our ability and our resources, be happy to do that and happy to discuss it with you at any time.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on the floor substitute? Seeing none, the question is, shall the floor substitute be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor substitute is adopted. Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill pass and speak to that just briefly.
Thank the Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. As you're all very aware, as we've had some conversations ensuing this morning, this bill defines our resources and our tax policy. It defines what is available to us to negotiate in conference for our budget. And I would submit to you, as we talk about tax policy and the resources available to us, that we actually have a very good underlying budget in place that was developed last year, which meets many of the needs of the citizens of the Commonwealth. In fact, even addresses health care benefits for some of those that are the least fortunate, that have been able to gain access to health care. We're not addressing that today, but it's already built into the budget. I would say further, Mr. President, to go along with my colleague from James City County, that we now we have been sensitive to the fact that we've omitted the earned income tax credit, but I think we have and will continue to have conversations to address in conference through the available resources that we have, meeting some of those needs that our colleagues feel need to be addressed in the final budget. So with that, Mr. President, I would urge all of my colleagues to support the bill.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 2529? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 2529 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 5.
Ayes 35, noes 5. House Bill 2529 passes. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank the ladies and gentlemen of the Senate for your support of House Bill 2529. Inquiry of the clerk. Does that complete today's calendar, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any other business to come before the Senate? Seeing none, the clerk will report any announcements on the desk.
Today, Monday, February 11th, Transportation will meet immediately upon adjournment in the old Senate chamber. Commerce and Labor will meet 15 minutes after adjournment in Pocahontas Senate Room A. General Laws and Technology will meet 45 minutes after adjournment in Senate Room 3 in the Capitol. The Northern Virginia delegation will meet at 5 p.m. Senate Leadership Conference Room, Pocahontas, 6th floor. Tomorrow, Tuesday, February 12th, the Education and Health Subcommittee on Health Professions will meet at 8:30 a.m. Subcommittee Room number 2, 5th floor, Pocahontas. Senators Donovan, Suderline, Carrico, Barker, Lucas, and Peake. The Committee on Finance will meet at 9 a.m. Committee Room B, Pocahontas. The Republican Caucus will meet 11:30 a.m. Senate Room 2 in the Capitol. The Democratic Caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m. in Senate Room 1 in the Capitol.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. For what purpose does Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal, rise?
Mr. President, I rise for purposes of 3 announcements.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, as we move into the last 2 weeks of session, I wanted to call a couple dates to the members' attention. One is this Wednesday, That is the last day for revenue bills in the budget to be in the conference, so expect to be here later than what you might otherwise be on Wednesday. Next Friday, this Friday, the 15th, it is the last day to request removal of a co-patron status from the clerk. So if you want to come off a bill as a co-patron, Friday is the last day. And then, Mr. President, on Monday, is the last day for any committee action to be taken by midnight. So, Mr. President, the next couple days should be fairly busy, with Wednesday being the day we have to get all revenue and the budget bills into conference, Friday last day to be removed as co-patron, and all bills have to move through committee by next Monday night. So 6 days from now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the Senator. What purpose is Senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Rough-Rise?
We have one change on general laws. General laws and technology will meet at 3 p.m. in Senate Room 3 in the Capitol. General laws, 3 p.m.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
And there are only 3 shopping days until the big day.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 12 noon tomorrow. And when we do so in memory of the Honorable John Harper.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow, and that when we adjourn, we do so in the memory and honor of the Honorable John Harper? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.